These are the stories I ate this month.
The stories I ate this month.
I ate the stories I ate this month.
Off the hook, but the phone never rang. Beast on the beats, no claws, no fangs.
Hello, I'm Kirsten, and it's November. I read 5 books this month. I watched 4 movies and 1 TV show.
Off the hook, but the phone never rang.
The first book I have to show you today is our Booksplosion October Book of the Month. This month we're working with Random House, and we read A Short History of the Girl Next Door by RECK. This is a contemporary about a boy who's 15 years old. He's a freshman in high school. It's been a while since I read something from the point of view of a boy who is a freshman in high school. And he's in love with the girl across the street who he's known all his life, his best friend, Tabby. And he hasn't been able to make anything happen with them, but he's hoping that they can move in a romantic direction. I really loved the voice of the narrator. I actually listened to this via audiobook. I love audiobooks. I'm an Audible affiliate. If you don't know, I have a link in the description, and if you use it, you can get your first audiobook for free. His narrative voice was kind of reminiscent of John Graham for me. He's very thoughtful in like a really fun way. I love the way he talks about his life, the way he describes things and breaks down stuff that's going on in his head. I really liked how poetic he was when he spoke, and I also loved that he was really into poetry, and he's a really good basketball player. He's on JV because he's a freshman. He's an up-and-coming awesome basketball player. He works really hard at it. Basketball is like a big part of his life, and it's a big part of this book. That's another thing that I haven't read before, where like we go to a lot of his games and he talks a lot about like his practices and stuff. It's kind of a sporty contemporary because of that. I really like how involved his family is in the book. That's all I can really say. I don't want to spoil anything for you. It was a quick read. It was really well written. It was fun to be in Matthew's head. His name is Matthew. If any of this sounds interesting to you, definitely recommend picking it up. The first movie I watched this month was on my plane back from New Jersey, and that's Working Girl, a movie from the 80s that I've heard a lot about and have never watched. It was really fun to see the hair. The hair is all out 80s, and the makeup. They have like rainbow eyeshadow that goes all the way. It's a lot. But it was fun. It was an old rom-com. I don't even really remember much now because it was like the very beginning of the month, and I'm trying to review it for you, and like I can't really articulate my thoughts because the movie has already kind of slipped from me, which is not a good sign. I didn't love it, but it was fun. Harrison Ford was the lead guy, which was just so weird. I've never seen him in like a rom-com setting, and that was interesting. And it was like kind of funny, but like it wasn't really. But it was good, but it wasn't like really good. I think I'm gonna give it a B+. What stuck with me most was the hair and the outfits and the makeup. The next book that I read was The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. This was absolutely fantastic. It's a really important story. It's actually already being turned into a film. I believe the film's set to come out next year, which is super exciting. It's about a girl named Star. She lives in a predominantly black neighborhood, and it's not the best area. There are a lot of gangs around, so her parents send her to a private school that is predominantly white, and something significant happens that really impacts her life and motivates her to speak up in the Black Lives Matter movement and try to make a difference. It's just an extremely moving book. I love the family aspect of it. Star has such an amazing family. All of the characters, they were all so well-rounded and fleshed out, and you just knew them. Like, you see everything so clearly. I'm so glad I read it. I loved reading it through Star's eyes. I highly recommend it. It gets an A+ from me. 5-star book for sure. The next movie I watched, and it wasn't really a movie, it was a comedy special, was Jerry Before Seinfeld, which is on Netflix. It's obviously Jerry Seinfeld doing stand-up. I feel like I don't know much about Seinfeld. Every time I've seen a Seinfeld episode, it's been because my parents were watching it, and I've never found it like hilarious. Friends and Seinfeld I feel like are compared a lot because they were on in the same sort of time period. A lot of people are either like a Seinfeld fan or a Friends fan, and I want to watch Seinfeld like from the beginning, and I hope it comes to Netflix so I can do that and like kind of get a better feel for the show, because like I've tried to watch it and I just like, it's not as funny. I don't get why Like, I don't see. Anyway, Jerry before Seinfeld. It was interesting to learn more about Jerry Seinfeld and his, like, comedic journey. I liked his set. Like, I found some parts laugh out loud funny, and then I found some parts like, oh, I think my parents would laugh at that, or like someone older would laugh at that, but I didn't. But I enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it, and it made me want to watch Seinfeld. The next book that I read this month is The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. I've been needing to read this for a very long time. If you don't know, it is a novella bind-up, but it does not feel like a novella bind-up. It feels like the story of what led up to the first book in the Throne of Glass series, Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I have an entire book talk about this because I've read so many of these books and had so many theories, like I couldn't not discuss it. So I'm not going to talk about it extensively here. There's a link in the description below if you want to watch that. The next movie, this is also not a movie, a documentary that I watched this month was Demi Lovato's documentary, Simply Complicated. I wasn't even aware that this was a thing that was happening, but Jesse was watching it and he was talking about it, so I turned it on and I could not stop watching it. I had no idea what Demi was going through these past, 5 years? And I really enjoyed the documentary. I'd give an A to Demi Lovato's Simply Complicated. It was fascinating because I was following her career and had no idea what was going on. The next book that I read was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I really enjoyed it. I do have a full book talk about this book. I'll leave a link to that in the description below if you want to hear more about Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. The show that I watched this month was Parenthood, which was made by the same people who make This Is Us. I am completely blown away. I can't stop watching it. The acting in this show, I've watched the first 3 seasons and I'm on like episode 9 of season 4. And I started watching it like 2 weeks ago. Literally, there have been at least 2 days where I haven't been able to do anything else but watch it. The acting is so fantastic and the writing is so fantastic that like I forget that it's not a real family. Like it feels like the most well-shot, well-spoken, real reality show of all time. If you don't know what's about this family, like there's these 2 grandparents, right? And they had 4 kids, and each kid is like in their 30s and they have their own families. They're really tight-knit and they do a lot of stuff together, and they also all have their own personal things going on. It's just so well done. This is not an exaggeration. I cry at least once an episode. So in these past 2 weeks, I've cried like 150 times. It's really hard for me not to cry, and I have to like consciously suck up my emotions because I'm tired of like being stuffed up and shit because I'm already dealing with allergies. Like I don't need this on top of that. You know, I love family dramas and this is just so well done. I can't really compare it to This Is Us. This Is Us is different and feels different. It has a different like look to it. It's shot differently, but it's just as well written as This Is Us. It is just a journey and I need to get to the end of it so I can concentrate on other things because it's always on my mind now. I'm just like, what are the Bravermans up to? What are the Bravermans doing? What's going on with the Bravermans? I love them. I love them! It's the show that Lauren Graham did after Gilmore Girls. She really hit the show jackpot here. She did Gilmore Girls and then went right from there to Parenthood. A+ to Parenthood. The last book that I read this month was Dear Martin by Nick Stone. This was absolutely fantastic. I tried recording a book talk for this, but I started crying because stuff happens in this book that was really emotional and it was just so well written. It was really interesting from a writing perspective how Nick tackled this book. It's about Justice, who's a high school senior getting ready to go to college. You know, he's a black kid and he goes to a predominantly white prep school, and it's him talking very honestly and openly about the prejudices he experiences in his everyday life and trying to deal with that. And he really looks up to Martin Luther King and the way he dealt with racism in his time, and he's trying to apply what Martin Luther King Jr. would do to his life. So he starts writing these letters, Dear Martin, about what's going on in his life and trying to think like, what would you do in this situation, and apply that and see if it works for him in his current life. It's really moving. It tackles really important conversations. It's just fantastic. It's such a quick read. I sat down and read this in one day. The characters are so fantastic and she manages to really pack a punch in such a short period of time. This looks bigger because I took it in the shower, but it's like 200 pages. It's 208 pages. Read Dear Martin. Just read Dear Martin. Just read Dear Martin. It gets an A+ for me. And the last movie that I watched this month, I watched on Halloween, What We Do in the Shadows. And I've been wanting to watch this for a long time. It's this mockumentary style film about vampires in New Zealand. It's about these 4 vampires that live together in an apartment. It's just really fun. I enjoyed myself watching it. I'd give it an A. Actually, like the lead guy in it is the guy who directed Thor. It was great. I don't have much to say about it because there's not much to say. You just need to watch it, and it's not very long. It's like an hour and 40 minutes, an hour and a half or something. It's like that Office, awkward, hilarious style funny that I love to do, and I really enjoyed it. And that is all the stories that I ate in the month of October. Now it's November, it's NaNoWriMo month. I'm excited to get back into writing and finish Parenthood. My favorite story that I ate this month, I think, is Dear Martin. I'd love to hear what your favorite story was that you ate in October. I'm Christine. I make videos every Tuesday. I'm at XTeenMay on Twitter and Instagram if you want to follow me there and get updated on random things in my life, and when I post videos, I have links to all my socials in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye!